Hi and welcome back to my channel. This is Marla with Mad About Cards and Crafts, and today I have this sweet Christmas card with non-traditional colors. I'm going to be doing a little bit of Copic coloring. I did end up coloring my polar bears off screen, but I wanted to share the color combinations that I did use on both the Greenery and the polar bears. I went with non-traditional colors, so pinks and teals and reds. I have the caps up on the screen. I die cut my Christmas Greenery from Neenah Solar White 80-pound cardstock, and I'm doing some really quick and easy Copic coloring, not doing a whole lot of shading. I wanted to just lay down some color on these die cuts. You'll notice that I do have a mat underneath. I tend to not add adhesive to the backs of my die cuts before I run them through my machine because I like to use liquid glue personally. I am not one to get things in the right place the first time around, so it allows me a little bit of wiggle room for me to move around some of the images. I thought that I would try something a little bit more non-traditional for this card today and think outside the box. You typically wouldn't think of Christmas Greenery with a snow scene, but I think that by incorporating the same colors in the Greenery, again, non-traditional and well, not lifelike, because obviously you wouldn't have any pink or red Greenery typically, but I thought that by incorporating the same colors in my polar bear trio as well as the Greenery, that it would allow the two images to make sense. And you know, if I went with a traditional Greenery color and then colored my polar bears a different color, it really wouldn't make sense. So by adding the same colors using the Copic markers, you can mix some of your items that maybe don't match, for lack of a better word. I wanted to use the background as a frame, and so instead of die cutting out the center, I did cut a rectangle out, and then I used some pink Gina K Designs ink to add that grid pattern. That stamp, that red rubber stamp, was from the Greetery, and so I wanted a little bit of detail or texture in the background. I am going to add a snowy hill to this, but I wanted to have something in the background that added a little bit more interest to that rectangle. I'm placing these large die cuts around the outer edge of this card panel. This is an A2 size card panel, so it has been cut to 4 1/4 by 11, and then I just scored it at the 5 1/2 inch mark for a top folding card base. And as I add these around, I'm going to obviously change the directions that I'm adding the die cuts. I'm also going to make sure that I try to keep the colors separated from each other so that I have a variety all the way around. There is an area when I finish with this that needed a little bit more Greenery, so I am going to bring in 1 or 2 more pieces that I can add underneath that die cut, and it's going to fill in any of the white space that I felt that just needed a little bit of extra color, so it wasn't a blank white space. So this is really quick and easy to do. The blues, the pinks, the greens, they're very non-traditional colors, as I mentioned before, for Christmas, but I think that it gives this card a very modern look, and I like that. That really appeals to me. It's something a little bit different. If you have seen any of my other videos, I have done a lot of very traditional, old world, Victorian type cards, and I wanted to just add a couple that had more of a modern touch for some of my friends that I know would really appreciate something a little bit different. I have these little tiny pieces, and I'll use those to fill in some of the areas that I think just need a little bit more color. I had cut those off the edges, so when I lay down those greenery pieces, some of them are going off the edge, and I just had little tiny pieces that I could add that would be helpful to fill in those blanks. Here's that piece that I was talking about. I'm going to color it up in the blues, and then I'm going to just have it peeking out a little bit behind that space right there. It was just needed a little bit of something. I could have obviously cut that leaf down and, you know, saved the bottom half, but I went ahead and just added it and allowed it to peek out that corner. I'm going to add some foam tape to that center die cut. I do freehand cut a snowy hill. I wanted to have the white snow underneath my polar bears, but I do cover most of it up. So I could have just cut a piece of cardstock straight across instead of cutting it in a snowy hill, but I hadn't really placed any of these items onto my panel, and so I didn't know what would be showing and what wouldn't be showing. I end up covering up that hill, and you just see the white below. I'll start with my Igloo, and I did add blue Copic marker to define each of the ice blocks. I'm going to add that to the center of that rectangle. And then I need to add foam tape to a couple of the polar bears, not over the entire back of the polar bear, but to the left side for the polar bear on the left, and I believe I add a little to the one that hangs off on the right side, because I did use that foam tape on that grid pattern rectangle. The polar bears would have caved on either side if I didn't add that little bit of foam tape. So I do have some 1/4 inch and 1/8 inch foam tape that I purchased at scrapbook.com, and I probably used the 1/8 inch is what I'm guessing. I don't think that I share precisely which one I used. There is a little piece of snow bank. There's a pole, a North Pole sign. And for the North Pole sign, instead of defining the words North Pole, which I normally do with a black micron pen, I decided just to do a little bit of ink blending over it. And I think that when it did the die cutting, that it really did go ahead and define that North Pole enough that I didn't need to add that additional pen to define it and make it a little bit stronger. These polar bears are so cute. You can color them up the same way that you see on the packaging. You can add the scarves and the hats by following the packaging. I kind of mixed and matched mine just a little bit. So where that snowbank was, where I added that white piece of cardstock, that's where I'm going to add my sentiment. And I'm going to stamp my sentiment using that same Gina K Designs ink. That way it's very cohesive. It's the same color as that grid pattern that I have on the background of that rectangle. And then I'm going to add a little bit of sparkle because I do like that sparkle. So this is the Nuvo Snowfall. Mine is very old. This is like, I think 2 years old. It's almost time to get a new bottle. So I keep having to just work with my hands to get that snow moving. But it's a really nice, very stiff, that's a good word for it. It's a very stiff piece of or glitter that comes out of this bottle, and I think that it adds that little bit of lift to the card and also that little bit of sparkle and shine. Here's a close-up of the finished card. I hope that you liked it. If you did, please make sure to give it a big thumbs up, and until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day. Thanks so much for watching.